Hi, this is the ninth audio in this series. It's material supporting the Elizabeth McSweeney Fibromyalgia Road to Recovery ebook series. So, as usual, I'm going to start this session with gratitudes. No matter what kind of day you're having today, please take this moment to think of one thing, however small, that you might feel truly grateful for. Gratitude brightens up the neurons in your brain, and now we're ready for some positive approaches. I know it's hard when you are suffering from the fatigue and the pain that is fibromyalgia. But it is really important, and it is crucial if you are going to take those steps towards recovery. To focus even just a millisecond of your day on something that enables you to forget about fibromyalgia, and gratitude is a brilliant place to start. So, one thing from today. Now, that's not to suggest that fibromyalgia is all in your mind. On the contrary, it is very much in your body. But in order to recover, you must train your mind to focus away from the illness and onto the recovery. So, while you take that moment, I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining me again. And now we're in the right frame of mind. We're on a roll. This is the 10th audio in the series. It's the third support material for Volume 5 or Ebook 5 in the Elizabeth McSweeney Fibromyalgia Road to Recover series. There's a link to all 5 of the ebooks in the series just below. They're available on Amazon. If you're lucky, you might be able to borrow them, I think, for free. I wrote these books 10 years ago following my own recovery from fibromyalgia, and I am producing these audio support materials to help you on your journey through fibromyalgia and out the other side. So today again we're focusing on the 7 healing principles that supported me in my journey, the framework that became my framework for my recovery. Now, I've noticed that the average listening time to these audios is just a few minutes, so I'm going to try and entice you to stay with me today. And in just over 5 minutes' time, we will be revealing the third healing principle, or your third key to recovery. It's not a secret, so all will be revealed in about 5 minutes' time. Before I recovered from fibromyalgia, I was ill for 12 years. I was diagnosed for 7 of them, and I was so disabled by the condition that I had a blue badge. Here in the UK, that's a disabled badge. That's a transport badge. And I was receiving disability living allowance, which doesn't exist anymore, I think, and a personal support allowance, which does still exist. 10 years ago, I was 44 years old, and now, a decade later, I have been medication-free, symptom-free and fibro-free for 10 years. And in this audio session, I'm going to talk about the third healing principle, the third key that you can use to help you recover from fibromyalgia. But first, let's recap those first 2 healing principles. Principle 1, healing principle 1. Or key number 1, recovering from trauma. Now, there is much discussion about the relationship between stress and fibromyalgia. There is a plethora of research, decades and decades, medical research into fibromyalgia patients that has revealed clinical case histories of trauma leading to a constant chronic stress, fight or flight response, and the feeling of almost permanent central nervous system exhaustion or hypersensitivity. Now, this is explained most simply by Hansel's general adaptation syndrome, which adds weight to my argument that the trigger for fibro is not one specific trauma, but rather repeated traumas. Continual exposure to stress, continual fight or flight leads to systemic exhaustion. There is much research and reference to research, fully cited papers in all 5 volumes or all 5 ebooks, linking fibromyalgia to physical, mental and emotional traumas. For example, head injury, childhood abuse, bereavements, abandonment, and not to mention persecutions at work, for example. But what really led me to understand the relationship between fibromyalgia and trauma was the responses sent to me, letters detailing medical and personal histories of people diagnosed with the condition. Heartbreaking stories written to me in response to research that I undertook through Fibromyalgia Association UK all those years ago. And everyone, and I mean everyone who wrote to me, had suffered not just one decisive trauma, but multiple consecutive traumas from which their body, mind and soul had no chance to heal before the next stressful hit. Now, if that has some resonance for you, here's the thing. Traumatic and stressful events leave a bioenergetic memory, an accumulation of old, unprocessed emotional pain, sometimes referred to as your pain body. Now, you might have heard talk of the pain body. This reference comes from the work of Eckhart Tolle. And he first spoke about the pain body, which can become re-triggered and compounded by any new physical or emotional stress whenever your hypersensitive central nervous system becomes stimulated. So I'm going to repeat the first part of that. Traumatic and stressful events leave a bioenergetic memory or an accumulation of old unprocessed emotional pain. Now that refers to your pain body, but actually they leave this energetic memory, this memory in your physical body. So there is the first healing principle, overcoming trauma. Now, I wrote about several treatments that helped me on my road to recovery and to overcoming traumas. Treatments including EMDR, which is really useful for post-traumatic stress. Now, if you can find a counsellor or a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist well versed in EMDR, that is fantastic. If you need signposting to one, do get in touch below. I also used Dr. Griffith's 7 stepping stones approach to hidden losses, which I covered in much more detail in previous audio support materials and also within the ebooks, which you can find links to below. In previous audio supports, we've also covered the second healing principle, that is cracking the insomnia pain cycle. Now, sleep disturbance is a problematic symptom of fibromyalgia. Some may even look upon it as a causal relationship. It's certainly a vicious cycle. The inability to sleep undisturbed means your body is not getting a chance to release natural opioids, to reset its sympathetic nervous system and to get rid of a hormone-like neurotransmitter called factor P, all of which leaves you feeling more exhausted and in more pain every morning you wake up from disturbed night's sleep. Now, if you have a resonance with that, and I'm sure if you have fibromyalgia you will understand that cracking that insomnia cycle is crucial key to your recovery. Now, for more details and top tips about that, you need to go and listen to the last audio, which is audio 9, and especially also to audio 2. Audio 2 is a very quiet track. You might benefit from having headphones. At the end of that track, there is a yoga nidra sleep meditation. Now, if anyone out there is a musician who can create some special binaural relaxation music to go with that, do get in touch. We could create a downloadable audio together. So that's an invitation. On the subject of sleep, we've just launched a range of CBD, cannabinoid and whole plant cannabis extracts. That is, when I say we have launched, I mean through my company, Green Lotus Loung Limited. Our brand is Green Lotus, the art of cannabis. We've made whole plant extracts where the THC has been taken out and they're very high in CBD, which should help you sleep. Not to mention that CBD is also an anti-inflammatory and works through your body's natural endocannabinoid system. CBD and hemp or whole plant cannabis sativa is also bitter in nature, which makes it alkalizing for the body. And this brings me on to healing principle number 3. So I promised you, didn't I? So we're about 7 minutes in, I think, maybe. Healing principle number 3, or your third key to recovery. Now, healing principle number 3, as promised, is the relationship between cellular acidification and fibromyalgia. Now, it's a crucial third key to support your recovery, which will be a strict alkaline diet, a strict alkaline and de-acidifying diet, at least until we can bring your natural pH balance back on a cellular level. Now, we know that build-up of mineral deposits and lactic acid are involved in joint pain and immobility, but fibromyalgia symptoms are characteristic of excess acid accumulation throughout the body. Optimal health occurs in a slightly alkaline environment. Blood has to maintain a pH, a measure of acidity to alkalinity, that's between 7.25 and 7.65. That is slightly alkaline, so any potential acidic condition is transferred immediately to the rest of the body outside the circulation, because your blood has to maintain that pH. So cell wall deficient bacteria, CWDs, mycoplasma and fungal infections such as candida are clear markers of chronic systemic acidity, and all are found in the fibromyalgia condition, or rather in people with the fibromyalgia condition, as a result of pathogenic anaerobic bacteria which deregulate cellular function. Now, you can go and read ebook number 5 and some of the books before that to explain this on a greater detail, but what I will say here is, as there is a condition in fibromyalgia, so as you heal, that condition will be reversed. So as that condition reverses, you will heal. These anaerobic bacteria produce more and more acid in the digestive canal and disable healthy functioning of the gut lining, which is no longer able to regulate its own intestinal flora. That is the beneficial bacteria. So in that sense, at that time, it doesn't really matter how much, say, for example, live yogurt you eat if you haven't got any intestinal flora to feed. So it's crucial that you balance your diet. Anaerobic bacteria and fungal infections proliferate, producing the acute symptoms of bloating and IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I hear you all having a resonance with that one. The systemic result is muscle tenderness and chronic fatigue caused by changes in energy metabolism, in red blood cells, impaired circulation, impaired oxygen to muscles, accumulation of uric acid deposits causing painful joints, and the characteristic fibromyalgia tender points. Now, there's a great diagram that explains this really simply in ebook volume 5. I hope I've explained it quite articulately. Cellular acidification is caused by diet, negative emotions, strong electromagnetic fields and sedentary lack of exercise. A diet of animal products, refined carbohydrates like bread, pasta, snacks, and coffee, which is acid forming, as are alcohol and tobacco. In ebook volume 4, I wrote in more depth about the most alkalizing or the most deacidifying foods, and included an appendix of some of my favourite alkalizing or deacidifying recipes. Some of them are also featured in the Road to Recovery plan, which is in volume 5. Now, the Road to Recovery plan, I've made a 3-day plan. Of course, you can't recover from fibromyalgia in 3 days. But if I wrote a 30-day plan, it would be very, very, very boring to read. So do take a look at volume 5 to have a look at that Road to Recovery plan and see, what you have to stick to in order to recover and balance your body back in a holistic way. So I'm going to leave you today with this thought. There's some fantastic yummy alkaline diet recipes or deacidifying recipes in the books. Now, if you know any fantastic chefs or photographers who'd like to work with me on a full colour alkalizing or deacidifying fibromyalgia recovery recipe book, please do get in touch, because that's a skill base that I just don't have. It's important that your alkalising diet is as yummy as possible, because it will be made up of foods that you possibly very rarely eat, or foods that you maybe have never eaten before. Now, it's crucial that you stick to a strict, and I mean strict, alkaline diet. A strict deacidifying diet until you recover. Not just adding some of those alkalising foods into your normal diet, but only eating alkalising, deacidifying foods. Think of it like a pendulum. It's swung one way, you need to swing it right over the other way so that you can come back to an equilibrium in the middle. Now, on that subject, I often hear people say, but I don't like, for example, spinach, watercress. I don't like water. And I ask them, well, do you like pain? Do you like being ill? And then I hear people saying, but I do like my chocolate or my glass of wine treat on a Saturday night. Now, what you need to remember is that while your body is in an acidic state on a cellular level, and if you have fibromyalgia, it is, and you are suffering from the pain and exhaustion of this condition, your body has become toxic, and in order to recover, you need to totally reverse that. So, your illness is a bit like, it's a barometer, isn't it, to tell you your body's acidic, it needs sorting out. So it's imperative, and I mean imperative, that you stick to an alkalising, deacidifying diet until you recover. And then you can, and then you will. Thank you for listening today, and do join me next time when I'll be revealing the fourth healing principle that I used in my own framework to recovery. Just to put a time scale on that, well, I was ill for 12 years, diagnosed for 7, disabled for 3, and it probably took me between 6 and 9 months to fully appreciate my recovery. So it's not a 3-day job. It's a lot longer than that, and it is a holistic 360 approach. But again, thank you for listening to me, and do come back next time, and we'll be talking about the fourth healing principle, the fourth key that you can use to help your recovery from fibromyalgia. Thank you.